You're listening to the Real Life Podcast. We're an interactive show which tackles everything life sciences from conservation biology to zoology and botany.
Our podcast is where environmental awareness meets fun and chatter.
So come and listen to us as real life scientists tackle real life topics. Our guest today is an environmental officer with the National Environment and Planning Agency.
She's most known for her work with crocodiles, and she also runs the page SaveCrocsJa.
She currently has a Bachelor's of Science in Wildlife Conservation from the University of Kent, and she's pursuing her Master's of Philosophy at the University of West Indies, Mona.
Her name is Treya-Ann Picking.
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, Treya.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Before we start, what would you prefer that we call you? Treya-Ann, Miss Picking?
Oh, Treya is fine.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm Maya.
Hello.
And I'm Sid.
And we know you've never met us before, so
No.
it can kind of be weird, meeting people in the online space. So
Especially not seeing us.
yeah.
Yes.
And you are actually the only guest. So you're special. You're the only guest that we don't actually know beforehand, because most of our guests are actually affiliated with UA. Not saying you're not affiliated with UA, but you are. But most of our guests tend to be like lecturers or postgrad students, etc. from UA.
Okay.
So you are unique, and that's why we're here, because you have a unique story that we wanted to share with people.
Oh, I'm honored.
Yeah, that's really it. So it's just gonna be a very light conversation. So even though we've never met before, we'll be talking like we're long lost friends.
Okay, that's cool with me.
Okay. All right. So how was your day today?
It was an intense Friday, but I'm just glad that it's the weekend.
Same.
Get to relax tonight.
Yeah.
And sleep late.
Yeah, I get to catch up on sleep. I mean, my weekends are always filled with work as well, in terms of like office work or like research. So, but I still try to like balance it, so I'm not spending my whole weekend, doing work, and take a break.
Yeah, because with us, we have the entire weekend to focus on getting labs done and stuff.
Oh,
yeah,
So
we have a
it
lot
has
of
to
work.
be a
yeah.
Definitely.
So we understand completely.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the first part of our podcast. We call this The Real. This is just where we warm up and just ask you some, regular questions, not necessarily related to what we're going to talk about later. So our first warm-up question for you is, what was your childhood career choice? Like, what did you want to be when you were really, really young?
Ooh. Well, it's kind of funny. I remember when I was younger, I think I was probably like 7 or 8, and the teacher was just like, all right, everyone, like draw a picture of what you want to be when you grow up, and just write like a sentence. And for some strange reason, I chose a taxi driver.
Okay. I mean, independent lady on the road making her own money.
No, I'm just imagining.
To this day, I don't understand. Like, I don't know where that inspiration came from. I mean, my teacher even went to my parents and was just like, "What inspired your daughter to say this?" And I think I remember why. It's because I wanted to pick something that no one else had chosen.
You wanted to be outside of the box.
Yes, and some reason, I guess taxi driver was what I went with. So that was interesting, but I definitely.
So taxi driver is your metaphor for nothing traditional.
But basically, yeah, I think so. Now thinking about it, so I think it was along those lines. That was kind of what I was going for. But I mean, I actually growing up, I loved, because I grew up in London.
Ooh.
Yeah, I grew up in London.
I thought you just went to school there. I didn't know you grew up there.
Yeah,
because we know that you went to Jamaican high school, so we just assumed.
Yeah.
you know?
So like just to give you a summary, like I was born in London, born and raised, and I moved here at the age of 11. And I've
Okay.
lived here ever since. I mean, the only time I went back for a long period of time was for university. But I'm kind of like, I call myself a JamBrit, but because I feel like I grew up here in like my teenage years,
Yeah.
I fell in love with Jamaica. Like I just that's the side of me that I love. Like I love living here. Still love England and everything, but I when people are just like, oh, what country do you prefer to live in? I'm just like, Jamaica. For various reasons. But one of the main ones being because of my career, really.
Mm.
Um,
Right.
but when I was in England now, growing up, I was very on the like more on the outside. Like I was into dance and instruments. I was also very much into sports. Um, and so I never really saw myself like going into like an academic career. But
Mm.
when I
Right.
moved here and I attended St. Andrew High School for girls, when it came around to kind of choosing, when it comes around to like CSEC and you have to kind of choose what subjects you want to
Mm-hmm.
do and
Yeah.
what kind of direction you want to go in, I was just like, well, the only thing I can see myself doing academically is something to do with the environment because I'd always been a very outdoor kind of nature girl. Like my dad used to always take me go camping and always used to go on like road trips. And when I moved to Jamaica, I noticed like, garbage and how beautiful Jamaica was, but also kind of the negative side to it that there were definitely some serious environmental issues that needed addressing. So
Right.
I loved subjects like biology, geography, and that's what I decided to focus on. And that's kind of where I kind of, I started to figure out what kind of what career path I wanted to go on.
Hmm.
Mm. Interesting.
Nice little journey.
So
Yeah.
you've had a very multicultural, multi everything life.
Yeah.
Growing from I love that. Love that.
Yeah, I did. I think my parents definitely let me do everything to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. But like I I always wonder like if I didn't move to Jamaica, would I be a conservation biologist? Like would I have gone into like profession like dance like as a profession or music or but when I like moved here because track and field is so serious, I even started to get like more serious with track and field. I did like long distance, I competed in champs. So I love
Oh
that.
wow.
And for a
Well
second,
Yeah,
rounded.
you really went into you see when you said champs, you really went into Jamaican culture. You did
yeah, I
all of
went
it.
straight in. I loved it. Like it was such a great experience. I did track and field at Andrews. I was on the track team for like three years, I think. Well, 4 years. Um, but I just love long distance, and I even at one point saw myself like getting a track scholarship to the States, and I don't know, like kind of pursuing that professionally. But by fifth form, things kind of mashed up, like not mashed up, but like I decided not to take on track and field as seriously for various reasons, and so I kind of toned it down, and that's when I really started to focus on what I wanted to do academically.
Mm,
Hmm.
okay.
Okay. Well, there's one thing for sure, whether you live in Jamaica or in England, the most popular word or the most popular thing right now in the world is the panorama that we're in.
The
Yeah.
Panera
So,
bread.
what have you done? So, like, what thing have you weaved into your daily routine since this whole pandemic?
Oh, it's hard because I mean, I'm quite grateful because a lot of just like as COVID hit, like there was a lot of like things on the horizon for me, like starting my master's, starting like the research project, like just really getting into stuff, um, and focusing on what I really wanted to like, do my research on. COVID, like I think I've taken more, things have changed, like slight things in my life, which I think have been for the better. Like I've learned a lot about how to handle like stress a lot better, and also how to put my mental health first, in terms of
Yeah.
knowing when to be like, okay, you need to stop thinking about work, stop thinking about the animals, and just take a break, like a mental break, not just like pretending to take a break. Like you actually need to stop thinking and getting like frustrated over issues that are not going to make a difference right now. If you try and like fight them, it's not going to make a difference. Um, so I think for COVID, like I have become more aware of the importance of, your mental health, and your physical well-being. Like that's definitely, because things are really scary, like the pandemic itself, and it's really important to keep your health up and to stay fit and to, watch what you're eating and stuff like that. So I've just been a lot more mindful and also a lot more grateful for like the fact that I still have a job and I'm still able to somehow carry out my research and still progress with my master's. So that's definitely something I've learned during these times. And I think it's important to always stay positive, like because like it's okay to have dips now and again, which I do from time to time, but I've really, really learned to kind of focus on the positives, so you're able to kind of move forward and also be the strength for other people around you. So yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. That was a very good message. I
Oh, thank
love
you.
that. Yeah, I like that too. That you found a balance. Like you didn't just say, "Oh, you know what, this is very terrible, and I can't get up in the morning." And neither did you say, "You know what, pandemic schmandemic. Make the
Yeah,
best out of every day." But
yeah,
instead, you made it a balance to say, "You know what, I'm a real person, and I faced real challenges, but I still."
yeah,
Even though I face these challenges, tried or still try every day
yeah,
to just be better and make it better. So
yeah.
you have a very, very, very extensive resume. And I noticed on your resume that you volunteered with TEDx Jamaica for about a month. So what was that like, and how did that shape you?
Well, that experience it was an interesting one. I think this was when I was around 14 or 15. I got
Oh,
involved. Yeah, it was when I was quite younger, because I think TEDx Jamaica, they had two. I'm trying to remember if I volunteered for one or two events. I remember I remember one quite well. But it was put on. It was actually through my father. He was one of the people who helped the people who were like organizing it. He knew them because one of the organizers was actually his boss at UE. So that's how
okay.
I got involved, and he asked if I like wanted to volunteer. And it was really refreshing. And one of the talks that really inspired me was this this English guy who's retired in Jamaica. He's been here for almost like over a decade.
Is that Dr.
And
Hislop?
no, it's
Oh,
actually
okay.
this.
No,
You might have
please.
heard of him, Melvin Tennant, and
Oh, okay.
he's the sea turtle guy,
Oh, okay.
and he's part
Okay.
of the
Orica Bessa
Bessa,
Foundation.
yeah,
Okay.
foundation.
Yeah.
And his story, the story he told was, he came to Jamaica just simply to retire with his wife.
Oh, I know that
And
story
he
too.
started walking the beach at night and noticed, poached nests and, poached sea turtles. And he started to monitor the beach more and more, and was actually able to kind of deter these people who were poaching, which is a success story within itself. And then
Right.
he's now to this day become the most successful sea turtle nesting beach
Yep.
in
And they
Jamaica.
still have they still have releases at Oracabessa. Like they
Yes.
post when they're gonna have releases and
Yeah.
everything. I remember reading
Which
that too, and I was so inspired by it, by somebody just coming and visiting and just seeing things,
Yeah.
and not even, maybe not even having as much of a tie to the country as somebody who was born here, but still deciding to make a choice to protect something that they found was beautiful and needed protecting.
Yeah, and I was just like, wow, anything is possible. Like he doesn't, like, he was a headmaster, a principal in England. Like he didn't have a biology background necessarily. But he just decided to save these sea turtles along this beach stretch, and it inspired me, because at that point, I was into the environment, but I still wasn't sure. Like I was still like, oh, I kind of want to go into conservation. And I think that his talk definitely was one of the things that pushed me into like looking into like specializing in conservation biology and choosing my degree. So that, like, I've never really paid much attention to that experience, to be honest, until you just brought it up, but it definitely was something that shifted me in the right direction to what I'm doing today. Yeah. So, those experiences, I always say to people, like, just volunteer, like, get experience, because you don't know what may inspire you or what connections you will make. Like, it's like all of my experiences have somehow paved the way for me today, and have definitely helped me along the way.
And it's funny too, because it's not the big ones, as you said. He didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we think, oh, we have to go after things that are directly in our path. But sometimes, you can stop at the little thing that's not too far off, but along the way, just to check it out, because you never know how it might help you sometime.
Yeah, no, it's so true. You really don't know. And it's always a worthwhile thing. It's always worth it. Always.
You said you moved here when you were 11. So I don't know how much of that experience you really remember. But I know it's a very broad thing that I'm about to ask you, but like, how is life in the UK different from life in Jamaica? I know you hinted at a lot of it already, but like any stark difference that you can like pinpoint?
Yeah, I can pinpoint a few. It's very different in many, many different ways. So in England, like, you kind of start high school when you're like 11, so it's slightly, I know that a lot of people start high school when they're 12 here. So I actually started high school in England. I went to like an all-girls Catholic school. And when my dad, the reason we moved here was actually my father, who's not even the Jamaican one, he's the British one. But he got a Commonwealth scholarship to do his PhD at the University of the West Indies in medicinal plant research. So he was just like, all right, we're doing this. We're moving to Jamaica. Because we used to come to Jamaica like all the time on holidays. I have a lot of family here. And I always loved like visiting. So I was just like, oh, I get to say bye to this cold weather, to these like really early, like dark nights. It gets dark at like 3 p.m. Like, I'm walking in the cold. I was just like, I think I could. I think I might like this.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, I had a positive attitude moving to Jamaica, which I think definitely helped with the shock of like all the changes and all the challenges with moving here. But because I started high school over there, I moved here in January 2012. When is it, January 20? No. I moved to January 2008, sorry. January 2008, I moved here. So I was already a term behind in high school. And I was actually fortunate enough to get a place at St. Andrew High School for Girls. And one of the big differences I noticed was the the intensity, like the workload.
The curriculum is different.
Yeah, so much different because a lot of it, is Caribbean based. So I was really
Right.
behind in some subjects, but I noticed that it was so much harder. Like,
Oh,
I was
really?
so good at math. Yeah, I was
Oh,
so
really?
good at math in England. Like, before I left, like, I was an A student in my math class, and then I moved here, and I was lost beyond repair. So I noticed that the work level was was harder in different ways in different subjects. What I admired about Jamaica is the respect that people give their elders. So, like, in England, you don't call adults like uncle and auntie or Mr. You just kind of call them by their first name.
Oh no.
And even, yeah, I mean, teachers is different. Like, you're meant to say Miss so and so in school, but even then, like kids can be so rude.
Right.
And disrespectful towards teachers in England, and I saw it on a daily basis, even though I went to quite a good school. But what I noticed as well is that at Andrews, like, I was just pushed into like having to memorize the St. Andrew mission statement, which was a whole. I remember a part of it, but it was about how I will be a young lady and I will conduct myself with dignity and self-control at all times. It was like a whole mission statement, and then actually learning the national anthem, which I to this day do not know the national anthem of the United Kingdom.
Wow.
Yeah,
we'll cut that part out because we can't obviously a Jamaican.
No, we can't. We really can't. I think the entire, if we have British listeners, they're going to be like, oh, so she's not from England. Like, we disown her now.
Yeah, no, but it's so different because, like, you're never required to sing it in school. Like, I've never once had to sing the British national anthem. But as soon as I came to Jamaica, literally the first day, they're like, everyone please stand for the Jamaican national anthem. And I was like, how does this go? And then the national pledge, and then all of like when it was devotion, like all of those songs, I was just like, wow. And then I loved
completely different.
It was a real culture shock, but I loved it. And I loved how they addressed us as young ladies. Whereas in my high school in England, my Catholic girls' school, they would address you as girls. And I think it makes such a difference when, your elders are addressing you in that manner, as if, like, it puts you up to a standard and there's some kind of, like, respect on you as a minor. So I really, really admired that. And I don't know, everyone was just a lot friendlier. In their own way, because I know some people, some girls were full of attitude for no reason, but it was very, 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 very different for school. And just I just fell in love with the culture. And yeah, I mean, there was a lot of challenges, a lot of negatives along the way. Like, we really struggled to kind of settle in some places. But overall, like, we don't regret it. We don't regret moving here. And, like, we were actually only meant to be here for 3 years. But, like, my father was just like...
It's been a minute.
Yeah, he was just like, there's no way I'm completing a PhD in 3 years. And it took him 6, which kind of seems to be the time that it takes at UE for the most part. So yeah, and then after the 6 years, like, I was just about to go to, I think I was going to go to sixth form, or I was about to go to university. My brother was like about to go to high school, and we had pretty much settled in. So yeah, we're still here, and I don't think we're ever going back.
Well, we're glad to have you guys. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us.
But I do have a question that's not necessarily on our list, but you mentioned that you went to a Catholic school, and in Jamaica our schools tend to, well, almost all are still very religious. So you're saying that even though both schools that you attended had some amount of religion in them, the Jamaican system to you was stricter than that in England?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
I think because in England, like, it's a melting pot. You have a diversity of you have a higher diversity of religions. So you don't, even when you have Catholic schools, like it may be that you sing a hymn from like the hymn book every Monday morning and then pray, and that's about it for the week. But I think in Jamaica, because I guess the majority or the most popular religion is Christianity, and it's just so strong in like all of the high schools, it's just the norm to have devotion every morning. So it was very, very, very different, very, very different in terms of that. I learned a lot from it though. Learned a lot about Christianity, some good, some bad, but it was interesting. The high school experience was definitely interesting, and I'm so glad that I went to St. Andrew High School for Girls.
Okay.
So then my next question for you then is, you are now, we're gonna fast forward a little bit and we're gonna go back, so that we go through the full journey of Treya to where she is now. But so you, for the past about 3 years, you've been an environmental officer for NEPA. Well, 3 years, right? So currently, or what do you think, or what do you see as some of the challenges that you've noticed in your job?
I think some of the key challenges are lack of manpower and resources. So I think one of my main challenges is the fact that there's not enough of us doing what we do. So like in my department, you could basically say that there's 3 of us that are in charge of the management and conservation of all protected fauna species under both local and international laws. So
3?
There's a lot to cover. Just 3 of us.
3 for all of the protected species, because there's a lot. So 3.
Yeah, under NEPA's mandate, because under NEPA's mandate, the Wildlife Protection Act, you have the Wildlife Protection Act, which is local, and then you have the Endangered Species Act, which is also local, but it speaks to CITES. So there's those 2 main acts that we cover. And there's just 3 of us, basically. 3 of us that focus on fauna. And it's a real challenge. A real challenge, because like right now I've somehow managed to focus on the crocodile, although I'm focusing on other species as well. My main focus is the crocodile because it needs attention. There's so much that needs to be done in terms of the management and conservation of our crocodiles here. So since working at NEPA, I somehow kind of took a strong liking to crocodiles.
Yeah.
Because I'm able to take a focus, and also I'm doing it as my research, so that even motivates me further. I feel like I've managed to accomplish a lot, but there's a lot of other species that need urgent attention and they are neglected. Just because there's not enough of us to manage. And then the other thing is, actually being listened to as a conservation biologist or an environmentalist. Like, just I can't say too much, but
we know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
we can figure it.
You put your position forward on something. You put all of your cards on the table. You have the strongest points you can think of, and then it's a big slap in the face when the decision is put forward, and you're just like, what's the point? Like, what's the point of me being here and trying so hard? And it leads to people becoming very demotivated in our positions, and not really fighting anymore because it's so exhausting and draining. And so, like, I'm so grateful. I am ever so grateful for the experience I've gotten at NEPA. Like, I know, like, there's a lot of UE students, the new graduates in my field who would love to work at NEPA, and I can understand why. It's in the field, you're doing what you love, but there's also a side of it that, it kind of ruins it a bit because of the reality of the profession you're in, and you have to. I've had to learn how to care to the point of not falling into like pockets of depression if it doesn't work out, or if it doesn't go in my favor, or like I feel like I've just like, you know, things have been thrown back in my face. And so it's just, I've learned so much by working there, and I honestly think like it's the perfect starting position. It's the perfect kind of graduate job for people, because you definitely learn all the ropes of what it's like working with government or in government, and the reality of our environmental sustainability protection situation in Jamaica, you know, firsthand. You kind of get to see how bad it can be and also how interesting it can get. So I definitely owe a lot to working at NEPA. A lot of what I've learned so far to NEPA. But those are kind of the main challenges. And I think it would be amazing if, I mean, we would be in such a better position if there were just more opportunities within agencies like NEPA, because the strength,
definitely,
like, we would be able to increase our capacity and our strength for environmental protection, and it would be amazing.
So
side note, before we go into like our next scheduled question, you said, you mentioned that your resources are scarce and and the manpower is scarce.
Yeah, I was definitely going to talk about that too.
On the ground willing, like, why is the manpower scarce? Is it that NEPA cannot afford to take on others, or are people not interested, or are they coming but not staying? Like, what is the issue?
Yeah,
I think it's that there's just not enough job positions to open, or job positions available, just because there's, you know, government aren't allocating enough resources in the environmental department. So like NEPA is meant to be National Environment and Planning Agency. You would think it would be half environment, at least half planning.
Right.
It's not. The environmental side does not make up half of the agency, and that's one of the key problems. And then the mandate that NEPA has to cover is so large. You know, it's like you're overstretched, so you're doing little things here and there to try and kind of, you know, achieve certain goals which you are assigned to every year. But like, you can't necessarily put your heart in it as you want, because you have to meet the other deadlines. And so it just seems to be a really big issue. And like, one of the things that I have been trying to work on here is giving people volunteering opportunities in the wildlife field, and I've managed to do it over the years through NEPA to some extent, like letting people like volunteer when we do like an iguana release, encouraging people to like volunteer at Hope Zoo, like trying to set up like herpetology trips, like, because I want people to like get experience. I don't want people to give up hope and like give up on the environment and try and go into another field just to make ends meet, because I know that if you really push, you will find opportunities. I know a challenge it can be. I was very fortunate, but I was also a person who I really pushed to be where I am at NEPA, and I just really wish there were just more opportunities for people. And COVID has kind of mashed up my master plan, but like, I do have a vision one day to like, my ultimate vision is to set up like a wildlife research and rescue NGO, and just be able to employ like all of these young conservationists, because I feel like that is the way forward.
Treya, did you look at my paper?
Yeah, you looked on our question paper, literally, because that's what we were just about to ask you.
Oh no, I'm sorry. No,
that's okay. That we can segue right into it, because we know tweeting about it, and like, we were wondering like, what was the issue that you think you would tackle first if you had like all the resources in the world,
and you have your NGO and you start your NGO tomorrow? What's the most pertinent issue that you think you would tackle?
Island-wide?
Yeah.
An intense island-wide education program on wildlife. How to just coexist from the little lizard to the crocodile. Like, just to raise awareness on our wildlife, because I feel like it's seriously lacking in majority of Jamaica, like across Jamaica. And like, yes, there have been educational efforts here and there, but it's not consistent. It's not consistent because no one's been able to like dedicate themselves to like an intense program. And yeah, there's been like, you know, the environment program, the school's environment program, which like Jet did, which is great. But I also feel like there needs to be a stronger focus on wildlife if you really want to combat the issues we have with protecting our plant and animal species.
That is my goal too. Yeah. That like if I could wake up tomorrow and just start doing that for the rest of my life, I would be happy.
Yeah.
We should join forces.
Yeah, but that's kind of why we started this podcast in the first place, because we have a passion for it's really, it can be disheartening sometimes when you know, like I literally had a conversation earlier about like the snow that's happening in Texas with my friends, and I was like, you guys realize that snow in Texas means Jamaica is probably going to get hotter very soon, because that's a very, very real indicator of climate change. And I started going into the whole sea levels rising and this and that, and it's like I learn all of this, like I do a whole course that teaches me this. I mean,
we have to for our degree, but most average people don't do this.
They don't have to learn it. And it's like when you sit in an entomology class and you learn about insects, it makes it very real to you how for all of these years you thought things that were not real. When you sit in the class and learn about climate change, it makes it very real to you that all those years that you thought in your head, the world will reset itself. You know what? We're not have to worry about that, because you know everything just going to work out. Yeah, man, it's soon come. And then when we realize, no, we're already behind climate change. Like it's not soon come. It's here. It's here. Like it's when we realize all of those things. I was talking to some friends the other day about like just about the crocs, about lizards. I was talking to them about toads and frogs, and they say, yo, if I see a frog, I'm going to sprinkle salt on it. I'm like, no. Ask somebody that if you're afraid of the frog, ask somebody to take up the frog and put it outside. Do not sprinkle salt on it, because some of the species of frogs in Jamaica are endangered. Are dying.
Extinct.
Some are extinct already, and it's like those things help your backyard, they help the community, they help everything, and it's just it's so hard to unlearn something. It is way
biodiversity
easier.
Is necessary. And you like we like to act like we're the only ones that need to share that need to be on the
the only ones that matter. Like it's just like, no.
Biodiversity is necessary for the plants that you love to eat. How else are we gonna eat food if we kill everything?
There is such a disconnect between us Jamaicans and our environment, and I don't understand why. Because like I had a crocodile biologist. She actually runs an NGO in Belize and is extremely successful, and she's like one of my role models, because she's just this strong badass croc lady, like croc woman or croc scientist, and she's literally like what I want to do when I grow up. Like I want to set up my own NGO. I want to like be independent. I want to like just change. I want to change the world. You know, like that kind of vibe. And she came to Jamaica, and we had a discussion with a fish farmer who, you know, is having crocs in his pond, and he has been complaining for decades about them. And it's just like, sir, you built your fish farm in a crocodile.
In a crocodile. Oh my gosh.
Right beside a river, which is known to have crocodiles along the south coast. Like, what do you expect? And then you come and you complain to the government about crocodiles eating your fish, even though they're not actually doing that much damage in the grand scheme of things, but they love to say that they are, because everything about crocodiles is exaggerated in the public eye. And we went to meet with him, because I know for a fact that some of those crocodiles that they catch, they're not making it out alive, which is obviously very illegal, and one of the many issues we face with crocodile protection. So I invited her to come with me, because she was down in Jamaica for like over a month. And I was just like, all right, because she has good relationships with like the fish and shrimp farmers in Belize, and she's managed to like, you know, like bring the message across that you can have that balance, you can coexist. Your business is not gonna fail. Like there are certain ways you can work with it. And at the end of the meeting, she said, "Wow, Treya, like that was harder than I thought it was gonna be." She was just like, "There's such a disconnect in Jamaica. Like you know, in Belize, people grow up like admiring the environment, appreciating the environment, being part of the environment, even if they have issues, like, and they may treat it a certain way. There's still this kind of more like this, I guess, moral compass, or like, you know, strong belief that you still need to work with the environment and respect it. So they're more, what do you call it? Like, it's easier to kind of get them to see how you can live alongside the crocs. They're important for the ecosystem. You don't need to kill them off, like, sort of thing. Like, it's possible.
Right.
She was just like, that was the hardest thing I've ever done. And that's when I was just like, yeah, okay, so it's not just me alone who feels like being a conservation biologist is, well, a crocodile biologist is quite the challenge.
I think you probably chose, first of all, Jamaicans don't even like lizard. So worse, I think the animal that you chose to focus on is one that people feel little to no compassion for as well, because it's like this big scary thing. I remember when that video was going around with the croc that was walking like almost on their two front legs in Florida, I think, swishing its tail, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, it's a dinosaur. And people were genuinely, you know, scared, frightened for their lives by this thing, which, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, if I really saw that in real life, I would just be stand up in shock, because I never knew something that big existed, you know, in real life. But at the same time, I think the message that overall we've tried to bring on this podcast is that it doesn't really matter if you like it. What matters is you recognizing that it has a greater purpose.
Important.
So then, Treya, my next question for you is, you've worked on projects both with the Jamaican iguana and the American crocodile. So in your opinion, what is the greatest misconceptions that persons have about these creatures?
I think, well, with the crocodile, that's kind of the easier one. The biggest misconception is that our crocodiles are this violent, aggressive species, and you know, if you see it, it needs to be caught and taken away from your sight. And I think a lot of that comes from the media and also folklore. More than media, because you know, people will watch like Nat Geo, or they'll watch like movies like Lake Placid, and they'll see these big scary animals. I mean, on Nat Geo you're gonna see a lot of like saltwater crocs in Australia, or Nile crocs, and they're amongst the most vicious crocodiles in the world. But what people don't realize is that the species of crocodile we have is not it's not a man-eating species. It's not an aggressive species. Their natural behavior is very shy and docile. And when you tell people this, like, some people are just like, nah, you're lying, like, blah, blah, blah. And then you hit them with the facts and they're just like, oh, wow. And then, like, I will tell them stories of how I walk through swamps with crocs, like, meters away from me, and we're trying to, like, get close to them to get a size estimate, and they're swimming away. Like, and if our crocodiles were extremely aggressive and wanted to eat humans, I don't know where I would be today. Like, I wouldn't be doing that, like, in the first place. And I tell people it's all about reading the animal's behavior. It's all about respecting their space, because they are a wild animal, and that's the key thing I try to get across. Like, they are wild animals, cautious. Any water body along the south coast especially could potentially have a crocodile in, which is like, I'm always just like, make your presence known. If it's a known like wetland, don't go in there. Try and avoid it if you can. And then also, like, don't swim at night, because that's when a lot of like wildlife is active, not just crocodiles, but like sharks, stingrays, jellyfish. Like, the sea is their home, and you are entering at your own risk. And I say to people, like, if our crocs were really that, violent and aggressive as a lot of people believe them to be or just assume they are, you would hear about crocodile attacks every week,
Really and
because
truly.
people, these spear fishermen and kids and people are bathing in these rivers or utilizing these rivers, swimming alongside crocodiles while fishing, bathing, whatnot, on a daily basis. And the fishermen are just like, yeah man, we're used to it. Him name Ben, him name Jerry, like it is what it is. And a lot of attacks, which majority are non-fatal attacks, are associated with fishing activity. So you have a spear fisherman that decides to put the bleeding fish on his body instead of using a safe practice and putting it there's a safe practice, which is one of the things I really want to get across when I get into more wildlife education. But putting fish in a pot and having it on a string, and it you kind of drag it behind you so it's not on you in person. Mm-hmm. But you may get a croc, whether a 6-footer, a 4-footer, or unfortunately maybe a 12-foot male that wants to try and take you on, which I would not want to be in that situation at all. And they're just like, I want the bleeding fish on your body. So we've had stories of crocodiles literally taking fishermen up in their mouths and shaking the fish off them and dropping them.
Oh wow.
I'm not even joking. Yes. Because they want the fish.
Not the human, they want the fish from the human.
They're not interested in the human being because it's not in their natural behavior. But I mean, just like any wild animal, you're gonna get attacks. So we've recorded 4 fatal attacks since 1847.
Oh, wow. Just 4?
1840, just 4 fatal attacks. There's been over 20 non-fatal recorded attacks.
Listen, mosquitoes kill more people.
And exactly, you are more likely to
dogs
drown
injure people more easily.
Exact. Cows, goats, you name it. There is so many other higher possibilities of being attacked by anything else than compared to a crocodile. And they are out there. They are along the south coast. You probably swam meters away from one and don't even know. Which is why getting them this message across is so important, because a lot of reaction, a lot of hate, a lot of why the crocodile is endangered is because of the fear.
Yeah.
The fear that people have towards the animal.
Definitely.
And there used to be a small crocodile population I forgot the bay.
Another Bay?
But they used to Turtle Bay.
Turtle Bay. Okay.
There used to be a small crocodile population, but it kind of apparently just disappeared. And we get sightings from time to time, but nothing crazy. And we get sightings along the north coast from time to time, but it's very rare because crocodiles, they, you get the large wetland areas and the rivers, the type of rivers that a suitable croc habitat along the south coast. So that's where they're mainly found. Okay,
so it's more like out by Palisade or Strip, or by
and Hellshot.
Yeah, and I was at the beach the other day. Imagine if I went in the water and saw a crocodile. Just joking. But
no, it's possible. It's possible. And it was funny because it wasn't funny, but when we had that non-fatal attack in 29. Ooh, the years are just merging. I think it was 2019. Yeah, November 2019, we had that non-fatal attack on Hellshire Beach, where 2 guys were bitten by a crocodile. And it was very, very unfortunate. But they were also swimming at night, and it's always a risk swimming at night, always, because anything can grab you out there, because animals, visibility is low. Animals are hunting, because crocodiles are most active at night because they go out and they hunt for fish and crab and birds and all that jazz. And so especially Hellshire, Portmore area, you have one of the highest concentration of crocodiles in that area.
And the thing about it too is that I noticed, however, that there is also many signs there that say, hey, crocodiles may come out
Crocs.
here. There are crocodiles nearby. So it's not a case where people are not informed, nor is it a case where there's nothing there to like actually say, hey. Because the other day when it was, I'm saying the other day, but it was probably a couple months ago, when there was a lot of heavy rainfall in Portmore, there were a lot of, you saw more crocodiles, right? Because there's more rain, places more wet, and they started to
flooding.
drift from their natural places. So but during the time when you saw all of those crocodiles in those areas, nobody got attacked by one, nobody was injured by one, nothing really. But
and I must commend the public, because we had a lot of calls, like people were notifying NEPA straight away that there was a croc, that was in an area where it was posing a threat, or people were posing a threat towards it, and we had a rapid response in that area from the Urban Development Corporation, because they have a field office out there with rangers, and so they're trained in crocodile capture. So they help us tremendously when it comes to Portmore crocodile incidents. And so they were just on their best leg. Like, they were amazing during the months of October and November, because they were just out there responding day after day, because we were just getting so many calls, and a lot of people were just like, there's an indication that there's too many crocodiles. I'm just like, no, it's not necessarily an indication that there's too many crocodiles. It's an indication that we've had a prolonged period of heavy rainfall, which we haven't had for a good amount of years.
Right.
And also, you have an area that's, a huge area, a huge community area that's within and surrounded by crocodile habitat. Like, it's what's expected. Yeah. Also, you have social media that makes everyone aware of every single incident that happened. But a few years ago, like, if there was a crocodile like stranded in a gully, you would not see that video online. It would not be passed around, because we didn't have this easy, accessible way of communicating on all these platforms. So there's all of these factors that kind of go into judging what's going on with our crocodile population and so on. So it's all very interesting to me, and I mean, I'm happy to say that I've definitely noticed a shift in people's attitudes, like a general shift in people's attitudes towards crocodiles when they're posted online. Like, if the Gleaner posts something, or one of those viral pages like posts something, they're also very helpful sometimes, because they get these videos and they post and they tag us, and we know what's going on. So like, we even get some cases where we're not aware of, and we try and find out, like, where are these people with this crocodile? Like, have they called NEPA? Have they called the police? Yeah. And sometimes we're successful in finding out and getting to the bottom of it. Other times we get no leads. But in the comments, like, from when I first started working at NEPA, like, comments used to be so vile. Like, people used to be like, what's the point? Like, why don't we kill them? Oh, there's a law to protect crocodiles, but yet there's not a law to protect our human lives. Like, that kind of attitude. And now, like, I'm seeing more people comment like, these animals aren't doing anything to you. Like, why are you harming
Especially
them?
when
Like,
they used to feed
the crocodiles.
At one point they were feeding dogs to the crocodiles. Oh my god,
that video broke my heart so much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I like, that was one of the worst like months ever. We were investigating that, and it was just a disaster. Like, it was a disaster situation, and it was a lot to do with the fact that a certain company that runs that sewage plant weren't securing the property, and it had always been the case. And unfortunately, it's unfortunate, because like, the community would go over there before they started relining the ponds. So like, those videos were from these newly lined ponds that already existed, but the lining that they had used made it even more dangerous. And when the water was low, the crocodiles were having a hard time exiting the ponds. And then, of course, it was very, very slippery, and people were going around and messing around like that. But like, before they started relining, people would walk over there all the time. They would look at the crocodiles. They would use it as almost like a reservoir. Like, they would go and walk, like, do their evening stroll, apparently.
Oh my god.
And it wasn't it wasn't up until recently, before those videos dropped, like a few months before that, I went there to do like a survey because those sewage ponds are an extremely important croc habitat in Portmore. And partly, part of the reason why they inhabit these ponds is because of habitat loss. Like you're seeing a shrink, a decline in our wetlands, and Portmore is a prime example where a lot of the community was built on reclaimed swamps.
Yeah.
And crocodiles have had to adapt over time. And it's such a perfect habitat because you have the natural wetlands along the coast, like the Flashes, Great Salt Pond, and then you further up, you have like Manatee Bay and the whole area up there, and going beyond to Clarendon. And then you also have the coastline right there as well. And then you have the sewage ponds. So that's kind of added into the mix of the whole crocodile habitat network. So I went there we have been surveying those ponds for years now, and it's definitely one of the highest counts we do of crocodiles on the island, which is concerning because crocodiles shouldn't be really living in sewage ponds. Like, what are the long-term health implications? Is it sustainable? Like, these are all sorts of things like I'm looking forward to like really researching a bit further down the line. But you just don't know. So we've been counting them, and then like we started to witness, like observe people from the community coming and feeding the crocodiles. And they were doing it in a way that was just like, like we have to look after them, like we want to feed them, we want to look after them, and they're here, and we know they're hungry. And it's just like trying to approach people in a way that makes them aware that what you're doing is putting yourself and the crocodile in danger.
Like we're encouraging them, but don't treat them as pets.
Yeah.
They are animals. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like it's two extremes. They either just like, we want to look after these crocs, we want to feed them, which is really bad because those crocs may turn around and attack you because they're losing their natural fear associating you with feeding. But the other extreme is that we want those crocs gone. Like, we hate them. Why are they in our community? Why they're in our space? Even though they were here before us, we don't want them here. Sort of attitude. So it's finding that balance. And then when those videos started to surface and it got really bad, that's when we were just like, no. Like, this property needs to be secured. Like, it's not good. Like, something needs to be done because it's also a health and safety issue. Like, it's a sewage plant. You don't want anyone falling in there and drowning. Yeah. It's like minus the crocodiles. But as a result of the feeding over that long period of time, a lot of those crocodiles in those ponds had grown so used to humans. Like, we were very, very concerned with their behavior that they were displaying. So we actually did, I can't really go into details, but we did a rehabilitation program on those crocs end of January to make them fear humans again. And it seemed to have worked. So that's like something we're monitoring, because the last thing we want is a crocodile with that behavior
who doesn't fear humans and coming online.
Yeah,
and
potentially
then fall into danger.
Yeah. So that's when they become a threat. When they're
exactly.
Okay, I understand that now.
So that's what causes attacks, because you may have that same crocodile that decides to travel and go to the natural wetland and then maybe swim along the coast, and you may have someone who chooses to swim at night, and the crocodile may challenge the person or may decide to be a curious croc like the last one. And who knows, that non-fatal attack that happened could have been a crocodile that was being fed. It wouldn't even surprise me if that was the case.
Right. We've had a great conversation, so we're gonna wrap up. Come on.
Yeah.
Because we've been going so strong. So where can our listeners find you?
Okay, so I'm on Instagram and
what's your Instagram name?
My Instagram name is Treya-Ann. That's Treyaann. And my Twitter is what's my Twitter? I think it's
It's
Treya
Treya.
underscore, and yeah, it's Treya, and my username is Treya underscore, and so I'm easy to find. And I also run this crocodile page called SaveCrocsJa.
That's you?
So yeah, it's kind of a secret, but I feel like everyone knows it's me now. So I'm just like, yeah. What's the point?
I knew the page existed, but I didn't
want...
know it was you.
Yeah, I started it just to try and I guess do a little something on social media and try and raise awareness through that platform, and it's gotten a lot bigger than I initially thought it would, and I'm hoping it grows even more. I mean, this whole social media thing can be so exhausting. Like,
felt
that's the other thing. Like, I want to put my heart into it. Like, I want to put more information out there. Like, I want to put more effort into like making posts and stuff, but it's also finding that balance with like taking a break and not being too consumed by this technology, like this world, this social media world. So it's tricky. I'm still figuring it out. But yeah, they can find me on those platforms.
You mentioned the need for people on social media. That's a good opportunity for people too to get involved with you, to create opportunities for young people. Get a social media manager, let them follow you around every time you go collect cracks, and them take your photo and video and they do all the captions for you.
I would be so down for that.
If you are interested in being Treya's social media manager, you can go and contact her on her social media. So yeah, definitely I think that's another opportunity that you can create for people, especially persons who now there's a push for people to be in more than one faction, and so they're doing they're doing environmental stuff, and them also do comms, and them also do graphics, and them also do items something, and you know, I love the vision that you started, and I definitely think as you move on I think the listeners that have made it this far probably want to see you succeed with what it is that they're starting. Definitely. So then you feel the same way? Yeah.
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
You definitely have a great vision, and I really want to see it become a success, honestly.
And we're here for it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much,
Treya,
we
want to thank you for coming. This was a really great conversation, and I'm really glad we got to speak to you before we ended this season.
Yeah. I'm glad too. Thank you guys for having me. It's been a pleasure. I always love to like talk to get the message across, and also to you two who are in the same field as me. That's always amazing. So yeah.
So just remember, guys, crocs are part of our environment, and we have to live with them. They're wildlife. We shouldn't treat them as pets, but don't kill them.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
Keep a safe back too.
All right. Bye, Treya.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Real Life Podcast. Follow us on our social media pages, Real Life Pod 876 on Twitter, and the Real Life Podcast 876 on Instagram and Facebook. Remember, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, and YouTube. Tune in next week, where real life scientists tackle real life issues.